To really make sure our finite state machine is working, we're going to have to test it. So let's test this finite state machine. There are a number of problems. We're starting at the spawn state. Um, Now the description doesn't call for a spawn state. It doesn't mention the leprechaun spawning at all. Um, but that's something that we can assume that needs to happen, so no problem. Now we have arrows, but these aren't really transitions because they don't have names. Um, so the spawn is a state, and then we can transition to two other states. Well, these states are really transitions. The name of the transition tells us what sort of situation causes the transition to take place. So once the leprechaun has spawned, if there's no goblin present, we move to pace back and forth or idle. Now if he spawns and a goblin enters the chamber, then he moves on to throwing rocks at the goblin. If the leprechaun spawns, the goblin enters the chamber and he begins to throw rocks at it. We move on to if goblin is hit twice, goblin flees. Now there are far too many things happening in this one state. Small portion of the diagram needs to be dedicated to unpacking this into its various states and transitions. Also, the goblin only needs to be hit once. The instructions provided are what you're asked to create a finite machine for, and so it needs to do what that says. So then the leprechaun goes back to pacing back and forth, and nothing else will ever happen because there's no transition out of that state. Worse, of course, is if the leprechaun spawns, there's no goblin present, and he goes to the idle state. Again, if the goblin then enters the chamber, there's no way to transition from this state to this state. This finite state machine doesn't provide for that. So if the number of rocks reaches 0, well, it's peas, not rocks. Then you check the rock pile. Actually, you go to the pea bag. You grab 3 peas from the pea bag. And then you go back to shooting peas at the goblin. So this is another one of those things that the leprechaun can reload, but then he can never do anything else. Now if the pea bag is empty, and that's a transition, then it causes the leprechaun to grab the golden vanish. I think that covers the various problems with this finite state machine. I hope it helps you understand how to test and debug your finite state machines.